infinite. I had no idea how it was going to work out, you know. And sometimes you have to throw yourself into the infinite. Anyway, so we're reading from Sri Guru and His Grace, and we come up to this section called Abandoning Bogus Gurus. And it's a very strong section, something to be taken quite seriously. And let's see what Srila Sridhar Maharaj has to say. Devotee, no, I wanted to read the Pranam mantra so I don't get too far away from, right? So, Devam Divyatanam Suchandavaranam Balarkachelan Shitam Sananandapuram Sarekabaranam Vairagya Vidyam Buddhim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Sarasvatanam Varam Vande Tam Shubharam Mareka Sharanam Nyasishwaram Sridharam. And then Gurvabhishta Supurakam Guru Ganar Ashisha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samastaveda Nipunam Sri Rupa Pantanugam Govinda Bidam Ujwalam Bharatanum Bhaktyan Vitam Shundaram Vande Vishwa Gurun Chadivya Bhagavat Premno Hibija Pradam. That's the Pranam mantra for Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Srila Govinda Maharaj. That's very nice. It says, Chintya Chintya Samastaveda Nipunam. He's expert in the conceivable as well as the inconceivable Veda. Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda, all the Vedas, Nipunam, he's expert. Chintya Chintya, in both what's thought of and what's not thought of, what is thinkable and what is unthinkable. Govinda Maharaj is expert in that. So we come to this question. It says, if the initiating guru falls down from the path, what should the disciple do? Srila Sridhar says, he may take shelter of the holy name of Krishna again and wait for some time. If the guru was at first a sincere disciple of his spiritual master, and now, as a result of some offenses, he is being neglected by his guru, he may be led astray for some time, but he may return to the standard again. So the first thing Srila Sridhar Maharaj counsels here, in fact, it might have been me who asked this question, because that was my question when I was there. But the first thing he counsels is wait and see. And this is something that Govinda Maharaj would say again and again. He wasn't impatient about making some big changes. He wanted to see, well, how are things going to play out? Let's take our time and let's not be precipitous, but wait and see. So he says, he may be led astray for some time, but he may return to the standard again. Still, it is said in the Mahabharata, in the Udyoga Parva, Gurorapi avaliptasya karyakaryam ajanataha utpatta pratipanasya parityago vidhiyate. And it's a very big verse in the Mahabharata, explained by Srila Rupa Goswami, excuse me, Srila Jiva Goswami, and one of the Sandarbhas. Uh, I'm having a look here. Guror api avaliptasya karya karyam ajanataha utpata pratipanasya parityago vidiyate. So it says here, a guru who does not know what is to be done and what is not to be done, who has left the path of devotional service, should be abandoned. This is found in Bhishma's statement in the Mahabharata. Bhishma is one of the 12 Mahajanas, and this is his statement to his uh, Astra Guru, Parashurama. Just a moment. Here. Well, Srila Guru Maharaj says here this is a statement to his Astra Guru, Parashuram, but there are a couple of different versions of this particular shloka. There's a very similar shloka to this in the Bhagavatam. And in the Bhagavatam, Bali Maharaj wants to surrender to Vamanadev. And his guru advises him, no, don't surrender to Vishnu. This will be bad for you. So that shloka is found in the commentary by Jiva Goswami. And Sridhar Maharaj points out, Jiva Goswami says that if the guru goes astray, he should be abandoned. But there may be circumstances whereby the inconceivable desire of Krishna, the guru may go astray for a time and then come back again. In that case, the disciple should wait for some time. It is very unfortunate for the disciple when such things happen. So the context in the Mahabharata is that Duryodhana comes to Bhishma Dev and he wants his support for the war. And Bhishma Dev tells him, you know, Dharma is more important than personal loyalty. So Bhishma has sworn loyalty to the throne of Hastinapur. And from his point of view, he sees that, well, Duryodhana is the son of Dhritarashtra, and he's the rightful heir to the throne. And I've sworn fealty to the throne of Hastinapur, so there's my vow. But Dharma is a higher thing. I should not support this institution simply because I have some kind of a vow of loyalty to the institution. If a path is unjust, even a guru should be set aside. And so, how can I follow Duryodhana in this case? And it's kind of interesting because in the end, while Bhishma Dev is telling you that discipleship is not a question of blind loyalty, but it should be guided by Dharma and Bhakti. And so in our own situation, the parampara depends on a certain amount of vigilance to maintain purity. And this is the point given by Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami is pointing out, well, if the guru becomes arrogant, avalipta, if he's ignorant of what's right and wrong, and if he deviates from the path, utpata, then it's correct and proper to reject him. But Srila Sri Ramakrishna is saying one may take some time to ferret out the truth. Jiva Goswami is pointing out loyalty is conditional, and Guru Bhakti may be absolute when the Guru is on the path of Shuddha Bhakti, but it's not blind obedience to a fallen person. If the Guru falls into sense enjoyment, pride, materialistic deviation, this kind of thing, misuse of funds, lying, even then, this has to be closely looked at. How one conducts oneself. Avaliptasya, it means arrogant, intoxicated by pride. Karya karyam ajanata, it means ignorant of what is right and wrong. And utpata pratipanasya means gone off the path of dharma. So then again, it's difficult for us to judge. So Srila Sridhar is advising patience here. As Govinda Maharaj used to say, wait and see. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj continues, he says, you will find this elaborately dealt with in the Harinam Chintamani of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. If a son leaves home and disobeys his father, the father may be indifferent to him. He may exclude him from the will. If, however, the son returns after some time and is again obedient, then he may collect his inheritance. In a similar way, a spiritual master may disobey his guru, and then his guru may be indifferent to him for some time. But again, if he sets himself right, he will not be disinherited. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita, apichat sudaracharo. So even if one is, the word acharya is interesting because it gets to conduct. Dur means bad, and su means especially. Apichat, it means even if apichat sudaracharo, even if someone's achar is especially bad, if someone's conduct is especially bad, Krishna says we overlook that. That must be overlooked. We're fragile, you know. So we should not deal very abruptly with these unfortunate incidents, but we should wait and see. So just this Govinda Maharaj used to use this expression, wait and see. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj originated this. Everything must be done judiciously. In trying to understand the relationships between guru and godbrother and guru and disciple, we will find very subtle points of sentiment. Just as when Krishna entered into the arena of Kamsa, he appeared differently to different persons. The disciples will have one view of their guru, and his godbrothers will have another view and disposition. The disciples of a genuine guru will see their guru as being with Krishna, but they may not be seen by his godbrothers. In Madhura Rasa, Krishna is seen in one way, and in Vatsalya Rasa, Mother Yashoda sees him in another way. The servants see him in another way. The rishis, like Garga Muni, will see him in another way. As Krishna likes to show himself, he will be seen. You may see the guru in your own way, but still, you'll have to behave in such a way that the newcomer's faith will not be disturbed. The newcomers should always be encouraged, because it's very difficult for a fallen soul to collect his faith and regard and offer it to the guru. It should be our concern that they collect their maximum regard and offer it to the guru. On the other hand, I may have my own conception about my godbrother. I may foster that within my heart as much as possible. I should try not to disturb his disciples. If, unfortunately, an acharya falls and proves himself to be lacking in that capacity, then if that comes to a sufficient degree, some steps may be taken. We may have to take some unhappy action. But let God save us from that disastrous condition. That should be our feeling. Otherwise, as long as possible, the rank should be respected. Both the relative and absolute consideration go side by side. The disciples should be encouraged by the relative consideration mostly, and the God brothers will have more feel for the absolute consideration. But still, they shouldn't disturb the newcomers in their premier position. Even if you think that the person performing the function of acharya is lower in qualification, adhikar, then you should formally give some special honor to him because he's in that position. The son may be the judge and the father may be the lawyer, but the father must give some respect to the son. He must give respect to the chair. So that kind of adjustment must be kept in the mission. When you are alone, the acharya brother and his non-acharya brother can mix freely. You can give a slap to his face. But when publicly amongst his disciples, you must show that sort of behavior. Respectful conduct should be publicly maintained to keep up the peace of the mission. So getting back to Bhishma Dev, if he originated this shloka here, Gurur apiyavaliptasya karya karyam ajanata utpata pratipanasya partyagyo vidiyate. He's telling Duryodhana, I don't have to follow you, you've gone off the path. You don't know what you're doing. Karya karyam ajanata. You don't know what is to be done and what is not to be done. And any teacher who doesn't know what is to be done and what is not to be done should be left behind. So it may be argued, then why does Bhishma support Duryodhana? Why does he take up the cause of Duryodhana? And between Jiva Goswami and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, different commentators have pointed out that on one level, for Bhishma Dev, his dharma as a warrior is the most important for him. And so, even though in the absolute consideration, he understands I'm taking the wrong side in this war, his loyalty is to Hastinapur. His vow to Shantanu and the demigods and so on is to protect the throne of Dhritarashtra. And so he throws his lot in with Duryodhana. But they also point out there's another deeper reason for his doing that, and that is that by taking up his role as a warrior on the Battle of Kurukshetra, Bhishma Dev, he gets to engage in combat face to face with Krishna himself. And as a warrior, that's the highest thing he could possibly do. And as a devotee of Krishna, to augment the pastimes of the Lord and speaking the Bhagavad Gita and concluding the Battle of Kurukshetra. All these things give a higher purpose to the life of Bhishma Dev. So if he doesn't join the battle, he doesn't get to ride face to face against the chariot driven by Krishna. And in this way, achieve his highest purpose. Srila Sridhar Maharaj continues. The devotee asks, although the disciple should regard the guru as absolute and of the highest level of spiritual attainment, how should the guru view his own position? That's really an interesting question. So again, this is metacognitive, because the guru may just be doing the work of teaching, but at some point he may have to step back and think, what is the meaning of my teaching? Am I a good teacher? Am I offering something of value? Or am I also corrupted by pride? Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Sridhar Swami wrote a commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam. It was a little different from the previous commentary. So the scholars, especially the Shankarites, refused to accept that commentary as universal. They put it to the test. They left the commentary in the temple of Vishwanath Lord Shiva and agreed that if he accepted the commentary, they would all accept. Then, from the Shiva temple, this verse was revealed. Aham vedmi shuko veti, vyaso veti na veti va. The real purpose of the Srimad Bhagavatam is very difficult to conceive, Lord Shiva says. I know the true purpose of Bhagavatam. Shukadev, the son and disciple of Vyasadeva, knows it thoroughly. The author of the Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva, may or may not know the meaning. So this is another beautiful shloka that's very pregnant with meaning, because it means a great artist, a great writer, a great thinker may express something, and generations may find that to be quite profound and discover new and newer levels of meaning. Whereas the person who actually set that down, wrote it, may not get it completely. Aham Vedmi, I know. Shiva says, Aham Vedmi, I know. Shuka, he knows. Vyas, maybe he knows, and maybe he doesn't. When teaching Sanatan Goswami, Mahaprabhu said, Sanatan, Krishna is going to give you his kindness through me. I'm talking to you like a madman. I feel many things are passing through me to you, but I do not know that I myself have that thing. It is possible. It is wonderful, but still we find it there. It is not unreasonable, although it is not understandable. So how is it possible that a teacher can give you something that he doesn't really have himself? It's possible. It's not unreasonable, but you can't understand it. So I like it that it says, Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipunam. Govinda Maharaj is expert in the known Veda and the unknown Veda. You see, when the Second World War broke out in Dalhousie Square in Calcutta, there was a popular government poster. A military uniform was painted on the wall. Beneath it was a saying, just wear this uniform, and the uniform will show you what you must do. So when a sincere man has taken a particular charge, he will somehow find out what are the duties of his post. Sometimes it's found in a school. The school needs a sports coach, and they go to the math teacher because he used to play football. And they ask the math teacher, can you be the coach? And he doesn't really know what he's doing, but they give him a whistle. And somehow, if he's sincere, he'll find out what the duties of his post are and conduct himself accordingly. And sometimes the football coach has to be the math teacher. Uh, I had a language teacher when I was in high school. He taught Russian. His name was Bob Pan. And we asked him, well, how did you come to study Russian? Because in those days, the Russians were the communists, and we were all scared because of the atomic bomb. And he said, well, when I was in Germany, I was working as an interpreter because I speak German. And they told me, we need a Russian teacher. He said, I don't speak Russian. And they told him, well, you can drive a Jeep, you can drive a truck, do it. And so he became a Russian teacher. So sometimes duty calls and you're given the uniform and you find out what the duties of your post are. This is a question of sincerity. He said, if he's sincere, God will help. God helps those who help themselves. You've taken the charge, and that charge has come only as a chance. But there is some underground link. Then if you try to go on, help will come to you. He's not a cheat. Then again, there's, digressing, just a question of those who dress themselves illegally as soldiers or policemen to commit a crime, or those who take up the dress of sannyasis or babas. Srila Prabhupada used to tell the story of the cheaters and the cheated, that there were these saintly men who used to bathe on the banks of the Ganges. And uh, these prostitutes, they thought, well, I'm a very sinful person, but if I have a child with a saint, won't that save me from my fallen condition? So they would, the prostitutes would dress themselves as devotee women and go to the banks of the Ganges where the saints were bathing to try to seduce the saints, just like in the story of Menaka and Vishwamrita Muni. But so the prostitutes are out there trying to cheat the saints. But then some other men heard about this somehow, and they thought, well, this is our chance. So they would dress themselves as saints and go to the banks of the Ganges looking for the prostitutes dressed as devotees. And the prostitutes would go to the cheaters dressed as saints to try to cheat them. So this is the cheaters and the cheated. The ordinary men pretend to be saintly persons, and prostitutes pretend to be saintly persons so they can cheat one another. So the cheaters and the cheated. So the idea that the dress itself will show you what you must do, it's limited. But if it's a question of a sincere person who's forced into a particular position, sometimes a private, uh, becomes a general in the middle of a revolution because he's the only one who can organize people. Hmm. He says, you've sincerely taken this responsibility as given to you by your master, and the master is not a cheat. He will come to help you with all his might, saying, do this. I'm helping. I'm at your back. When we are all sincere, things will happen like this. So then there's a new chapter called the Nam Guru and the Mantra Guru, but I'd like to pause here and just just a lot of interesting points here, you know. Aurora Piavaliptas, that's one. And the other one was Vyasovetina Vetiva. And the other, so he's saying if the teacher is of a bad character, that may not necessarily be enough. It may just mean he's cranky. There was a great guitar master of the 20th century, Andres Segovia. He took the guitar from the hands of the gypsies who played flamenco, and he elevated the guitar to the position of an important instrument in the orchestra. And everyone reveres him for his innovations, his tone. And yet he was a terrible teacher, just terrible. Everybody hated him. He would reduce people's egos to ashes. They would play a few bars of a great classical piece, and he would just rip them to shreds and say, "Why are you playing it like that? Don't you understand? You should use my fingerings. I wrote that into that score. Why aren't you using my fingerings? Uh, why are you playing this soft? You should play it loud, bring it up." But his attitude was such that he made people cry. And they all hated him, Andres Segovia. But that doesn't diminish the fact that he's a great classical guitarist, and his recordings are studied by everybody, you know. Now he's maybe a little out of fashion, but in the 20th century, he was a big guitar player, but terrible teacher, right? He had a bad character. Does it mean if the guru is prone to anger, necessarily he should then be rejected? Guru Maharaj is saying here, wait and see what happens. I was trying to think of another analogy that might fit in here, and I thought about my wife's aunt. She has an aunt, Teresa, and she suffered from vertigo. And vertigo is like, when your life is going like that all the time, you're dizzy. She was dizzy. She couldn't find the horizon. She's constantly nauseous, vertigo. It's that feeling you get when you stand on the edge of a tall building and you look down. Oh my God. I had that feeling once at Morro Rock in California. There's this rock where you park your car up here and you walk out on the rock, and suddenly you can look down about 2 miles, and about 2 miles down, there's an eagle circling, another mile above the ground. And there's people climbing up the rock right underneath you. And you go, oh my God. And when you come back down, you hug the wall because the vertigo just pulls you down. So my wife's aunt tried all these different remedies, different teas they gave her. She had to see the doctor. The doctor said it was her cholesterol. Anyway, I went to visit her house. And in her house, nothing was level, nothing was plumb, right? All the floors were angled this way or that way. The windows were crooked. And after walking around inside that house for 5 minutes, I had vertigo because the architect, had not studied how to level a house properly. He didn't understand how to drop a line and make a straight line. Pranashish had a house like that in Anuskorthi. I don't know if you ever visited him there, but like the stairs were just a little bit this way, and the windows a little bit that way. So in architecture, there are rules, and a good architect knows how to construct a house so that it's straight even given that the earth will settle and so on. But here in Mexico, uh, I was going to a school a long ways away and had to take the bus. And one day the bridge fell down. So it was another hour to get to where I was going. A year later, they constructed a brand new bridge. It was beautiful, right? And I thought, wow, this is great. Look at this. It's a real modern bridge. It's got 3 lanes. And then about 6 months later, it rained and that bridge fell down. And I thought, what is this? How does that work? The Roman architects who built the Appian Way in Italy, you know, and this is credit to the ancestors of Adwai. The Romans, they built bridges that are still standing today. And they built them with stone and slaves. They had no technology. But they must have had some pretty good architects. Whereas the engineers who built those bridges, here in Mexico, sorry. What does it mean? They're all using artificial intelligence to pass their exams or copying. They don't care. And then there's corruption. And corruption means the architects of the Appian Way, they used stone. And these architects here, they're using the cheapest sand they can buy. They're using the cheapest cement they can buy. The steel that they're getting, it's not really, really steel. It's kind of, corrupted with iron and it rusts and so on. So if you look at what the guru is teaching and you see, it's kind of okay. But then what he's building with the cheapest materials. Why? Because he's stealing, he's misusing funds. Well, that's corruption, isn't it? And so at some point, you decide, well, okay, this house is falling down. This house is giving me vertigo. I can't continue here, right? This is a metaphor I'm using to try to get at the idea of tatasta vichar. Tatasta vichar means metacognition. It means you can compare. My mother's the best mother, undoubtedly, but Pranashish will say, no, no, my mother's the best. What do you mean? Uh, but maybe Ireland will give a big prize to the mother of the year. And I can look at the mother of the year and I can look at my mother and go, well, okay, maybe there's a standard. So in architecture, there's a standard. In music, there's a standard. Your instruments must be played in tune. You see, but say here in Mexico, we have these mariachi bands, they're always out of tune. And they kind of sound good like that. Irish pub music, the band's kind of a little bit out of tune, but it's good like that. If you listen to an orchestra play mariachi music, it sounds strange because all the instruments are perfectly tuned. They're all playing in exact harmony. It just doesn't sound right, you know. Socialist freedom are just saying, well, some kind of, variation may be expected. But at the same time, there is a standard. And our chastity is not to an individual. We do not swear blind allegiance to some individual and then do whatever he says, regardless of whether he becomes drug addicted or surrounded by female gopi disciples. We're all in for that. Uh, no, our adjustment is with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So if we notice that the building is tilting a little bit this way, you can look at the code and go, wait a minute. If the Guru says something that's plainly wrong, you can consult the Shastras, you can consult other sadhus, and they can help you because after all, it's your path that you're on. Anyways, I'm getting far up. Oh, I wanted to hear you say something. Because I'm just sitting here staring at a computer screen, you know, without, you know, being, I'm trying to walk a very fine line here and hew to what Guru Maharaj used to say. Yeah, pranashish.
Yeah, I mean, for example, again, a general example, let's just say some new disciple of a Western sannyas guru is traveling through India and he goes to some temple, Vaishnav temple, and there happens to be an Indian guru there, and he's very impressed with him and he likes him, and something he felt some connection with him, which happens. I'm just giving this as an example. Um, Srila Guru Maharaj always said, get a letter, talk to your guru, say, look, guru, um, this is how I feel. I met so and so guru. Is it all right if I have his association or not? And then the guru, if he, because he obviously knows the man anyway, will say yay or nay or whatever. And Guru Maharaj did ask for letters before, and once he got the letter and it was okay, things were good. So he put a lot of emphasis on this letter format, permission to speak to somebody else. Is it okay or not? For example, if that situation arises where you felt you would like to speak with somebody else and get their association, that they actually encouraged you, and you know everybody wants what's best for everybody, don't they, at the end of the day?
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada trained Achyutananda.
Right.
And I can't remember what the whole history is, but somehow Achyutananda accompanied him to India at some point. And then Bhaktivedanta Swami was invited back to the United States. Maybe he had to go to England to meet the Beatles or something. And Achyutananda Maharaj, at that time Das Brahmachari, was left alone in India. And so Srila Prabhupada said, well, if you need some association, go to Srila Sridhar Maharaj. He can help you. So being able to consult more than one source is also good. So it is supposed that we are not so sectarian in our view that there's only one person on the planet who can properly inform you about what Krishna consciousness is. If Krishna consciousness is real, then it should be experienced by many and on different levels. And we should be able to form some kind of a sangha where we get, different levels of Krishna consciousness. Do you see what I mean? You can't just say, well, the only source of electricity in the house is this outlet over here, and there's nowhere else on earth where I can plug in my computer. It can't be that exclusive. If electricity is real, it should be freely available. You know. I was thinking about this idea of, chastity to the mission and all that. And if you look at the history after the disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the six Goswamis, the next big wave was Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamananda Pandit, and Srinivasacharya. And they had different gurus. The guru of Shyamananda Pandit, I think, was Hridaya Chaitanya. And the guru of Srinivasacharya was Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And the guru of Narottam Das Thakur was Lokanath Das Goswami. So they had different gurus. They all loved the teachings and instructions of Jiva Goswami, who moved the teachings of the six Goswamis into the next generation, either personally or through his books. But Shyamananda Pandit Narottam Das Thakur and Srinivasa Acharya, they had different gurus. They didn't fight amongst each other saying, oh, no. You know, what Hridaya Chaitanya said, that's the real thing. You don't know what you're talking about. Or, no, Lokanath Das Goswami, he's the Jagat Guru. He taught me this. No one else can, you know, get to Krishna except through him. I think there's a certain amount of contamination from fundamentalist Christianity, where they say, you know, Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the light. No man cometh unto the Lord except through him. And we transfer that onto Srila Prabhupada and say, you know, Prabhupada is the way, the truth, and the light. No man cometh unto Krishna except through him. But I think last week we were talking, we gave the example of water, you know, a clear spring, a rivulet, an arroyo, a stream, a river, monsoon rain clouds, the ocean. You know, there's different sources of water and different levels of purity as well. Yeah, Hari Priya. Hi.
Hello, Mahayogi. I hope you're well.
I
I
am.
just
I'm
wanted to
feeling
ask
good.
a question. That's very good to hear. So last week we discussed the situation of an errant guru, and my question was relating to last week, and that was, you know, save yourself and help whoever might be in the position of being vulnerable, to help them as well. And my question last week was, what about the guru? Should we extend help to the guru? And then so it's a further question to that. And
Wait. So what about the gurus? You mean, how do
so
we
it's a,
help them? Is that your
yeah,
question? Oh,
yeah.
that's a
So my
good
question
question.
really
And
is
what was the
now,
other one?
well, it's following on from that because the question was kind of answered today.
Oh,
But so when we step back and, you know, obviously to see like the Lord Krishna will help that guru, but does that mean that we're not in a position to help the guru, for example, like with guidance? Like I can't even think of a scenario, but maybe if they're taking drugs or whatever. Or should we step away completely? And is that because of our position as devotees, that we're not in a strong enough position, or is it because it's dangerous?
wow, it's a great question. Just the fact that you can think of things like that uh, demonstrates your advancement. I'm very impressed. I like that you used the word errant. I haven't heard that word in a long time. It's very precise, nice English. Errant gurus. Because, you know, errant, Don Quixote was an errant, he was a knight errant. And the idea of the knight errant is he would wander from one place to the next, something like Narada Muni, you know, but armed with a sword and a lance and a horse. And the whole thing about Don Quixote, of course, is that he's completely mad and he's chasing a mad ideal that no longer exists. But Srila Sridhar Maharaj told us a man is known by his high ideal. So in that case, the madness of the Quixote, it's a high ideal. It's like the madness of Nityananda. And the idea of a knight errant is it's very romantic, but an errant guru, of course, is not a good thing. So how can you help the errant guru? It's a really good question. It depends on your relationship, doesn't it? You know, it's like, say you have a relative who has some sort of addiction and you want to help that relative. Well, it's very famous. You can't help somebody unless they want it. You can't go to them and say, well, you know, you're addicted. You need some help. They will just refuse you outright. You can tell them, well, the people who can help you, they have these meetings. You should go to meetings. Maybe they can help you. That won't do anything either. And in fact, My brother was an alcoholic, a very severe alcoholic. He died of pancreatic cancer, which was probably caused by his alcoholism. You know, it's the liver. So, but he wouldn't listen to anybody ever. And, you know, what can you do? So you try to help that person. He would go to Alcoholics Anonymous, right? But Alcoholics Anonymous, strangely, they have another group that's called Al-Anon, which is a sister organization. And the survivors of alcoholics go to that group and talk about their experiences. But it does nothing to get anybody to stop being addicted. It's just because you were involved with an addict, you need therapy, it turns out. So, you know, that's a really difficult question. I've dealt a lot with that question personally because I have known some people. I don't know if this is the right forum to mention names, you know, but the problem with getting into cases is it becomes scandalous, you know. But you can trust me on this. I've known some people who, you know, deviated from the cause, so to speak. And, you know, alcoholism is a very good metaphor because if you try to help an alcoholic, you have to think, well, what does he need? He needs beer, you know. That's what he wants. So if the best help I can give him is to supply him with more alcohol. But that's called, in their particular parlance, they call that enabling somebody, you know. So how do you help a friend, guru, to come back to the right path? Srila Sridhar says, well, wait and see. The problem with that is sometimes you just see them go farther and farther and farther away until they're out past the solar system somewhere. You can't contact them anymore. I have a particular friend I'm thinking about. He's beyond contact. And I've reached out and it's just, he's farther away from the solar system. The light just doesn't reach out there anymore. And I try reaching out to people who know him, and they'll say, we don't know where he is, we don't know what he's doing, but suddenly he'll reappear, you know. But I don't know that that can be done. So, you know, save yourself. Think of the Titanic, you know, and some of the men on the Titanic, they had this sort of Victorian code where they thought, well, let the women and children go first. I'm going down with the ship. But the logical thing is save yourself. You know, it's nice to have the Sangha. It's nice to have an association of devotees. But in the end, as Jimi Hendrix once said, I'm the one who has to die when it's time for me to die. So let me live my life the way I want to. You know, you know, and in the end, it's, you know, I don't know if reading all these books and traveling around the world and chanting the holy name has done me any good, you know, because my mother would say, well, if you're so spiritual, you know, why can't you blah, blah, blah? You know, if you're so spiritual, how come you got angry when the guy on the phone, blah, 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 you know? I have a problem. I have a problem with FedEx right now because my brother got a pair of glasses here and went back to the United States. I had to ship them FedEx, right? And it's taken me like 2 months on the phone, constantly talking to robots, you know. It's weird. And maybe on Monday they'll arrive. And, you know, but I lose my patience. And my wife will say, well, if you're so spiritual, you know, why do you lose your patience? Or I'm teaching children, you know, and one boy will pull a girl's hair, and you say, don't touch her. And he does it again. You say, please don't touch her. And he does it again. So, you know, if I lose my temper or say the wrong thing, someone will say, well, if you're so spiritual, Mahayogi, you know, how come you can't take out the trash, you know? So I don't know, right? All these years of, oh, the other thing is I forgot constantly, I'm from California, where natural gas, it's just right underneath your house. They put a pipe down there and it comes up. It's metered, but it's not exactly free, but it's just there. So you want a hot shower, you can take a hot shower whenever you want, you know. Here, I live in Mexico. That comes in a big can, you know, you have to pay for it. So if I leave the gas on, I'm paying more money. And someone will tell me, hey, turn off the gas, you know, after you take your shower, turn off that boiler. But I'm forgetful, you know, and someone will tell me, hey, Mahayogi, if you're so spiritual, how come you can't remember to turn off the boiler, you know? You know, why do you leave? Oh, the other day at school, I'm confessing my sins. The other day at school, I snuck out and made myself a tea because I was just exhausted. And I left the tea bag in the sink, you know, somehow thinking, well, maybe I'll reuse it, I'll recycle that. I'll get another cup of tea out of that, you know, but I didn't. Somebody took a photo of the tea bag, right? Right, and they put it up on WhatsApp, you know, our teacher's page, and like, who did this? So if you're so spiritual, Mahayogi, how come you can't put the tea bag in the trash? I don't know, you know? So if I can't save myself, if I can't do these very, very simple things, how am I going to, you know, rectify a guru who's somehow gone? And then again, you know, the guru principle, this is an ebb and flow to where sometimes, you know, Advai Krishna will be the best teacher in the room, you know? Sometimes it'll be Hari Priya, sometimes it'll be Seva Rupa. Sometimes it'll be the guy who says, hey, how come you can't put the tea bag in the trash? Wow, you're my guru. You're explaining, you know, how to be clean, you know? Someday it'll be Suvasini Meenakshi Sundaram, who's very kindly putting these videos on YouTube. For what purpose, I have no idea. By the way, if you like the video, please subscribe to the channel. Our class continues to be and will continue to be absolutely free. There's no subscription fee. You can listen to us rant and rave about His Divine Grace, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj, Sri Guru and His Grace. And, of course, Bhakti Sundar Govinda Maharaj, who understands both the known and unknown scriptures. But, you know, it's a great question, Haripriya. How do you go to someone and say, hey, you used to explain the known and unknown scriptures. Why are you smoking cigarettes? You know, come on, come back. But I don't know. There's a certain ebb and flow in life. If you know the answer to this question, you know, let us know. But don't tell us it's Ram Krishna and Vivekananda, as we've heard that. Okay, Sevarupa, what are you making in your kitchen? Looks really good. Are you making the prasadam for the day?
Yes, but it's a recipe I got from Mohanananda Prabhu. So
Oh.
it is some tofu going on there, and then this is some pasta with mixed veg and pesto, something. Pesto. Yeah. And then it's
Wow.
still going to go into the oven with some cheese. So it's got
Wow.
olives and something like that. Yes.
Oh my God, as we say in Mexico. Um, that's fascinating. And you know, it's very impressive that in Indian cooking, there are some processes that take like 5 days to create a dish, because on the first day you have to pick the fruit, and on the second day you're peeling it and, you know, immersing it in some sugary solution, and the following day you're making a pastry to go with that, and it just goes on. There's these beautiful descriptions in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of how that used to be done. Anyways, thank you all very much. I've gone over my time, I think. We're exploring the vicissitudes of metacognition while elucidating on Sri Guru and his grace. We'll talk about the Nam Guru and the Mantra Guru next week, which is sort of a different tangent. And, you know, we'll leave behind this problem of guru who doesn't come up to the mark. But the other thing I would just leave you with is, again, instead of trying to apply this to our friends and saying, hey, why aren't you wearing your Tulsi beads today? I caught you. You know, be generous with others and strict with yourself, and think, well, you know, Sri Ramakrishna talks about being sincere. So instead of trying to find fault with the sincerity of others, let me be sincere about my own devotional practice. And I'll leave you with that. Thank you all very much again, and happy Sunday, and Hare Krishna to everybody. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.
Prabhu Ki Jai. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahayogi.